we are live and we're recording here for the Blunt Coach with a new episode. And I'm so thrilled because today I have the beautiful Ilil Sat Prem with me. And she used to be not only, well, she still is, you know, that never ends, but my teacher. And she had a very profound part in my becoming a Kundalini yoga teacher, but also like a rather more conscious human being. Still working on that, but you know, I'm getting better every day. And she's a healer. And she's not only healing as we used to know it, as in person to person, but she does it online, which I find so brave and so like, you know, because all of a sudden what we do in a small scale, not saying the small scale is bad or wrong, but gets an outreach that a lot more people can participate and come into this like transformative time in the most conscious ways possible. That's what you do. Ili, thank you for being here with me. And
Thank you so much for having me.
can you describe me just a little bit how, because I remember you told us this story in our training that you haven't always been this like, you know, calm, uh, really knowing who she is personality. And you have been like very, very much something I responded to back in the days, which was more of a like ragey, kind of like all over the place person. How did you go into that transformation? What happened? What was your friction? Where did it go?
Actually, I have to say, I still am that person. Like this inner intensity. I just learned to direct a chunk of that inner intensity into calmness. Yeah. And that's part of my work, like the energy. It's an energized state of calmness, not a, happy as a clam kind of calmness, but a very high energy kind of centeredness. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just not so scattered any longer. Although part of the time, I have to say, I'm here in New England with my family, and in the normal life with a small child, it is sometimes very scattered. But I learned the trick of transforming and taking part of it and using it for inner transformation, for centeredness. And then the next step was also to somehow help others transform with this kind of calm intensity. Yeah.
How did you get to do that? How did your path lead up to doing what you do?
Well, that's a long one. Um,
We have some
well,
time.
the answer is always crisis, isn't it?
It
It
is.
al- it's yeah.
Yeah.
And the advantage and disadvantage of this inner intensity is the intensity of it. The crisis intense, the transformation intense. There was just no other way. Somehow the inner suffering, the inner misery was so great that something had to, something had to give. And this is what happened. My case, it went through really like my 20s were spent. I was an artist, first of all. I was a musician.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yep. And, still am in my free time. There's always the joke, like what I work with is now a profound inner silence. And I used to make noise for a living. I was a percussionist, so that's also part of the transformation. And my 20s were spent really in kind of it was all too much. The creativity and everything not honed into anything clear and yeah, and nourishing in any way. And then there was this love affair that really threw me, which was also in some funny way my beginning as a remote healer, because this person it was a remote love affair and super dramatic. And then when it ended, I still had this feeling that there was something for me to do to heal in the relationship. There was just this inner strong feeling, which
Mhm.
now, by the way, as a healer, ethically, that's not something I would do, like heal somebody else without them knowing. I
Yeah.
apologize for that 1,000 times, but this is how, through the intensity of this loss, the transformation happened. I found myself then, I was born in Tel Aviv
Mhm.
and then moved to New York City following this crisis, this love, and found myself really like in proper crisis, like shedding my identity, having nothing almost to eat, like really
Mhm.
I took the opportunity somehow to go all in
The
this
artist's life.
transformative. Yeah, yeah. But I had a nice career as a percussionist and back home and so on. And I let everything go. I had such a strong feeling, also accompanied by deep dreams and these transformative dreams that showed me that there was just no other way but follow step by step, and day after day, whatever, this inner force that was transforming me. I just realized that I had no choice, and without a clear plan, I just followed step by step, and
Mhm.
then found myself in New York City in the midst of a proper so-called Kundalini crisis, with very funny things happening. They're funny now, and actually, thankfully, they were kind of funny then. I was
Mhm.
in my late 20s, so I already could contain it somehow, and luckily had enough of a sense of humor to somehow contain it. But in another way, this was really harsh. I literally remember myself crossing like Madison Square Park and feeling all the souls of everybody who had ever, lived there or passed by, just all of them talking to me and asking something of me, really as if I had no skin. That was the
Wow.
sensation. And, if today my advice to anybody going through that kind of crisis would be go out of the city,
Mm.
touch some grass, obviously.
Yeah.
My impulse, for some reason, took me to the big city,
Yeah.
so that's where I experienced it, and then I was very lucky to find first I found online the concept of Kundalini. I tried to figure out what it was that was happening to me. I came from no spiritual background. I was in the arts, so I developed my sensitivity and so on, but I had no idea about spiritual anything.
Yeah.
And I researched a bit and found the concept of Kundalini. And then, very, very luckily, the most famous Kundalini studio in the East Coast was just right around the corner.
Mm.
I went there, I was broke. I asked for them to help me, and they did, with then later a full scholarship to the teacher training, which really put me
Wow.
on a path first
Mhm.
to become a Kundalini teacher.
Yeah.
And then I was super fortunate to meet my teacher. His name was Gurudev Singh,
Mhm.
and he was a masterful healer, a Mexican guy who was a super yogi and just an incredible healer. And I just met him for the first time, and I knew, okay, there's another level of there's something here for me, another level of consciousness. And still, I wasn't clear on what was taking place, but I was just simply following, the inner knowing that when I felt that this was something for me, then I would do it. And I think I studied the first few years with him. I didn't even know what I was learning. I just had no idea what was going on. It was just such a deep experience. He was also not, I make a point when I teach to really elucidate, like make things very clear, these
Yeah.
profound realities of the unconscious, to make them very clear. And he was teaching in English, and his English was not so good. And he was, this deep person. I think the first 2 or 3 years, I just had no idea what I was learning,
Yeah.
but things were happening. Yeah. And yeah, so part of this healing, like through this crisis, some healing abilities already emerged,
Mhm.
but I wasn't doing it right in the sense that I was getting very depleted.
Yeah.
I was practicing this, I have to apologize to all of these people, but I remember myself sitting on the A train from Brooklyn to Manhattan and just looking at the people and realizing that I had this capacity to see them in their different ages
Mm.
and also how the energy flows, and to within my own space to just do something about it.
Mhm.
So I was practicing in this way. You have to practice somehow, right?
I'm not going to give a comment because it's like in coaching, it's kind of like the same. I remember when I asked my trainer, like, when am I allowed to start working? And he was like, finally, you're asking the question now. So it's like you never really feel ready and you don't know when to start, and you always think like, but I'm still carrying my own stuff with me,
Yeah.
and am I doing it right? Did I even ask the person if they wanted that? And you do give advice here and there and there, and then at some point you realize like, wait, nobody asked me to do so. And you just develop those skills of being very careful and very conscious about also, is it receptive on the other end? Is it
Oh,
one,
yeah.
or is it the way to hell that I pay for them? So in the end, I mean, it happens everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah.
Now, and I don't think harm has been done.
No, no.
And this is the
But
path.
today I teach my students, when I teach them healing and remote healing, how to be clearer about that ethically somehow
Yeah.
from the beginning. Yeah.
Mhm. Mm.
But, it was as it was. But when I started out as a healer, I was really not balanced.
Yeah.
Exactly in that sense that you mentioned before, and what I receive, what I give, something there was out of balance, and my teacher really helped me with that through this understanding of a profound state of silence where, everything balances itself out somehow.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, and then you're not depleted. Yeah. So that was my path in a nutshell. Yeah.
Now you saying that, I remember in our training, you gave me part of the gift of silence. And this is really something for all people listening. There are so many people out there that are so hypersensitive, and it's mainly just because when you just described that you had no skin. It's kind of like what happens these days, because the skin we're pressed into just doesn't fit us anymore, but
Yeah.
we don't know where to go, but we start shedding the skin, then we're vulnerable, and then we become so oversensitive, but we don't notice what's actually going on because subconsciously we already go the way of healing without knowing that this is it.
Yeah.
And then someone like you comes in and offers a path, and you do it through so many different ways. Can you explain a little bit what the kind of ways are? I remember we've been going into meditation for meditation and another meditation, and it was always
Yeah.
about this silence, and I had voices in my head, and everything was screaming inside of me, until at some point all of a sudden you feel silence and you're like,
Yeah.
wow, it exists, right?
Yeah.
And can you elaborate a little bit on how you do it, what you do? Yeah.
As you said, the main thing, the one thing is that state called silence, and silence is just a word. It's not necessarily so silent. Maybe it's a space. Maybe I don't. I don't even know. But it's this state which also corresponds to your question about giving and receiving, which is something in the yogic sciences called pratyahar. It's this state of internalization. I just explained it somehow nicely in the teacher training last weekend, where at the same time I don't exist. It's like a part of the ego. I don't exist at all. All that exists is you, is everything.
Mhm.
And at the same time, nothing except me, this self, exists. It all happens within my perceptual field. It's a non dual state where there's no separation, no differentiation between me and other. All I am is this point of awareness, and there's something in me which can choose how to direct it. But other than that, there's no separation. So
Mhm.
this is the main state that I teach, which again has the quality of space, and at that it has the quality of a kind of an infinite container. So to
Mhm.
what you said about the vulnerability and whatever is happening, this inner space has the quality that it can really beautifully contain the
Mhm.
crisis and the transformation. And then you're not pressed into, misery, basically. Space is what is needed for transformation. So that is the core of what I teach and what I facilitate for people. And then there's techniques, which mostly I use because I'm trained as Kundalini yogi
Mhm.
and teacher trainer. And this technology is fantastic in the sense that it's just super efficient.
Mhm.
And when I teach, I can't even remember what specific techniques I used when I taught your group, but I feel the group and I recognize what needs to be done. Like,
Mhm.
okay, there's always a group, we can call it a group meridian. And maybe it's that path to the third eye that allows for a specific kind of communication that's a bit blocked. So I'll choose the meditation to open that up for the group. It's
Mhm.
always what's necessary in the moment to facilitate that inner state, which is basically at the foundation of everything. It's just about clearing the way to get there because, it's nothing new. It's in all of us all the time,
Yeah.
just clearing the way. Yeah.
Wow. Listening to you, I'm wondering about one thing. I always consider people as healthy to begin with. This is
Absolutely.
always my starting point. And whenever I hear the word healing, I get a little bit of a cringe. And then I'm wondering, wait a second, there are so many definitions of healing, and I would love to hear yours.
Maybe that changes daily, but you are very right. I perceive that in the exact same way. And that tells me that you look at a person's soul because that aspect, if I can call it an aspect of our being, is that which is never touched and
Mhm.
is never sick
Mhm.
and nothing ever happened there. It's always perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
But in people's experience, things cover it up and create anxiety and create misery. And then, this aspect is lost to our awareness. It's there, but it's lost to our daily experience. Yeah.
Mhm.
And oh, it's raining.
Yeah,
Hallelujah.
I'm sorry,
Hallelujah.
are you getting wet?
I'm just ever so slightly in a very refreshing way. It's okay for now. I'll tell you if it gets worse.
We're the rainmakers here. It's like
Oh,
our
but
conversation is
how
opening up the skies.
however, my computer's
Okay, yeah.
not as happy as I am.
No, that I'm pretty
Give
sure
me
about that. Do you want to change position for a moment? And we'll
I'll have
stay
to do
with
that.
you. Now we start with magically a yellow corner appeared because it's been the healing for your computer because it started raining where you are, which is in the United States at the moment, right?
Mhm.
Do you feel, I just for a moment want to jump into that right away because this is something that interests me as well before we continue about the healing thing at large. But you being in the United States, and the United States is in a massive transformation at the moment, as I mean the whole world is, but it's very obvious to us for we get to see a lot of it. Do you feel a different kind of energy over there?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
From the moment I landed, very much. And I used to live here.
Right.
And last time I actually never visited, or I just passed by all these years. It's been 13 years, and I really feel the shift from, yeah.
Like, do you feel as a healer that there is kind of a healing process possibly going on, or that is like a um, that people
That,
would need a
mm,
healing process, or
I can, yeah, I have to say I didn't contemplate it deeply,
right?
but sadly, I have to say the moment I landed, I just sensed how the space was feeling, and there was this level, a new level or new quality of, sorry to say, this toxicity
Mhm,
that
mhm,
I didn't remember.
mhm.
Yeah. It's, of course, everywhere, just in different ways, in different places.
Right.
Yeah.
Which means you would also kind of, as you tap into a group and saying like, okay, the group energy is more like we have to open the third eye point, or we have to
Yeah.
access them through their root lock or whatever that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
The same counts for cultures, right?
Yes.
in
Yes,
in
I would
certain
say.
ways.
It would be quite a job. I don't think that I'm not yet Krishna. I cannot sit and heal everything, or it would take maybe longer than I have.
Right.
Although that's a very worthy thing to do, and doing it in groups is definitely something that's really powerful.
Yeah.
But yes, I could look at it this way and see and sometimes there's a clear answer that can show me a specific exercise, but most of the time it's just the quality of contemplation, like how
Mhm.
you contemplate in this inner space of containment can create the shift, because the shift is, again, back to your question about soul, is how to bring the flow back
Yeah.
of the soul to its original state of
Yeah.
absolute health. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. You just mentioned that you working in groups, and I know that you work in groups more and more often, and that also it has been a process for you because you and I have been talking about that quite a lot. And I remember it's like when you work in a one-on-one, or then you start to work for your first groups, it's kind of a different process. Even though you have the same tools, nevertheless, you start to, right, take a step back in a way and work with that group as an entity, trying to see the different kind of individuals inside. Nevertheless, it's a group energy. And
Yeah.
now you not only do that for like live groups, but you do it
Yeah.
online. How is that?
You just described it so perfectly. And it's yeah, and it's fascinating, especially online. I mean, I've been working with groups. Actually, I've been a teacher since forever, since I was 18. I've been a teacher. So working with groups as facilitator, that's many years.
Yeah.
So working as a facilitator is not new to me, and it's in some way, I mean, I love healing one-on-one, but I love teaching more than anything. It's also the more efficient way to go, because when I teach other peoples to do that same work, then that's then
Mhm.
it spreads out. The online experience has been fascinating. I was scared about it for a long time. I avoided it for a long time. It didn't make sense to me. somehow like the space itself anyway, even if I work in person with a group, there's such a multidimensional experience.
Mhm.
And then I was worried of what the remote space and the fact that people are in actual different spaces, what would that add, and would that addition be healthy to the
Mhm.
work? But it has been but at some moment I just had to do it because it was COVID and I also got pregnant, had a child. I wasn't able to travel or teach or gather, and people needed healing more than ever,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I really had to try it out, and carefully, step by step, I was doing it. And it's just a fascinating process, which somehow highlights just how potent and how transformative this space is.
Mhm.
Like people in different continents have, you know, experience of the space literally moving them in the same
Yeah.
way with their eyes closed at the same moment. It's incredible. It
Mhm.
really shows that the quality of the space, this healing space, this transformative space, is absolutely beyond the limitations of space.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's been incredible. And as you said, this I just love it more than anything. Teaching groups, healing to groups. I teach,
Yeah.
there's theory, there's discussion, but mostly I take them very deep in this state, and we go through healing sessions, just one after the other, healing on the group members or on guests. And I have to describe the healing process that I would go through, again, with considering everybody's consciousness
Mhm.
at the same time, and the different processes and the group processes and the difference of the space each individual day. Like the stars and align, the planets align in whatever way. Every single day, the space is absolutely different.
Mhm.
So all of these, and then the person that we're healing, and then articulate all that. It's really been absolutely fascinating for me, and a huge process also in my story. In some ways, I feel has to do with expression, of learning how to express something first as an artist, like express my own soul in a
Yeah.
way. Yeah. And that has been really transformative for me, a new level in that sense. Yeah.
Did being an artist help you in that process?
Uh, I was a very stuck artist in some
You
way.
were? No way.
Absolutely. The expression was a problem. I really was. I was, as a percussionist, I was serving beautifully. I can support and listen and do that very well. But whenever I tried to compose, I was always like perfectionism and a lot
Mhm.
of that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was a very stuck artist, but it it helped. First of all, the element of service in that strong element of service in the healing just makes everything flow, because I had the illusion. Now, by the way, in my ripe older age, if I were to become an artist again, and maybe I will someday find more time for that too,
Yeah.
would be much easier for me. I wouldn't be stuck. But I guess this confusion of thinking there was more about me and then expressing me, and this, it really relieved me, the idea that, I was serving somebody else. It never is about me. It's a
Yeah.
pure expression of the soul, but it's never about me. So this
Yeah.
was very helpful. But of course, and I also love working with artists as students because the sensitivities are very high. You
Yeah.
can really jump in. You don't have to sensitize.
Mhm.
So in that sense, it refines the perception,
Mhm.
working in or doing art, and the sensitivities. So in that sense, a huge advantage and help. Yeah.
Mhm. Did you have any holdbacks when you went in front of a camera thinking that your healing process now is happening through that little lens over there?
I was terrified to do that. There's two things. I took a workshop with you that was super helpful. And this was just before I recorded I have an online course that's pre-recorded,
Yeah.
which I had this strong intuition that I had to do it, that I had to create this comprehensive structure for people to be able to use over and over again,
Mhm.
beyond the teaching online and joining every 2 weeks or whatever, but really to have something that they can use.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I had no idea how to do that first, even before the camera, just theoretically, just like my work is always informed by the present moment.
Yeah.
It's, yeah, the alignment of the stars, that specific person, that group. And then I had no clue how I would guide a healing session or demonstrate a healing session
Mhm.
to not a specific person and on not a specific, I had no idea.
Mhm.
And I had to trust the wisdom of the space. The space is where this kind of pure intelligence flows through that has nothing to do with my fears or my ego or anything. And I had to trust it. And it worked very like beautifully. It worked beautifully. And of course I had to throw away that first shooting day, like 7 hours of shooting that first day
Oh.
had to. But I'm sure you know how that works. That happens.
Is that still the perfectionist in you, or was it really that
It
bad?
was really that bad. But in those the 3 days afterwards, I managed to squeeze in everything so smoothly and just, go with a perfect flow.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Can I ask you, who comes to you? Why are people, like people are out there and they have this like they experience some kind of friction, they experience some kind of not knowing where to go, what to do, maybe the body is not functioning the way they would want it to, all those kind of things. And then they start to look for solutions.
Yeah.
How do they come to you? What is it that you in a way offer, or someone says like, I need her?
Good question. You'll have to ask them. But I suppose first I have to say that people come with everything.
Right. Yeah.
And it's anyway a mix always. Like most people that come to me, no, that would be more accurate to say, have some kind of sense that dislocated shoulder or that pain in the knee is not just that pain in the knee. There's,
Mhm.
a whole me and there's something. So they anyway have a sense of that.
Yeah.
But technically, in terms of symptoms and conditions, there's really everything.
Mhm.
Um, they look for depth because
Yeah.
that's what I offer in a
Yeah.
way. And mostly those are people who've had some experience or some opening to understanding that there's a reality in them. There's something
Yeah.
that's beyond the physical.
Yeah.
And they have a sense that they need, yeah, guidance. Yeah. Even if they come for something very technical, or let's heal my, I don't know,
Mhm.
thyroid or whatever,
Mhm.
they already have the sense that it's all connected to everything and that there's a soul. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Has you being a mother changed in how you work with people?
Mm.
I'm calling out the big guns. I'm sorry.
Yeah. When something is so big, I somehow it swept over me in such a big way that
Mm.
I have to think because everything changed, of course.
Right.
But I do remember my sense just after I gave birth
Mhm.
that everybody, and it's always like this for healers, by the way, there's always like these times where people come with something that very much corresponds with something that I'm going through.
Yeah. Mhm.
And a lot of people with a specific theme
Mm.
come in particular times. I'm sure you as a coach also experience that. That's really how it goes. And I really had the clear sense that for some time there, everybody who came had this. I was in it. I don't want to say it in a way. I was in capacity of a mother because I'm not. I'm a healer and there's a professional relationship, but something in the healing space required me to mother in some ways. Or there was a mother issue, or there was something.
Yeah.
For some time, I was very clearly experiencing that. And then I suppose the transformation in me was so complete that I'm changed that I don't even know how to answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, to me, it always feels like people subconsciously notice the bridge I have just crossed and they come to me and be like, can you explain to me how you did that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I always have to go into the state of like, wait a second. Okay, sure. Let me walk back. Let me
Yeah.
see the tools I used, and then I can help you. And I don't know how you feel about that. What is always kind of hard for me is when someone comes to me with a question of something that I have done many, many years back. And then I need to go back into their state where they could be right now, then back into mine where I was back in the days, thinking what was it that was really important to me to understand, to know what was the disability I felt,
Yeah.
and then how did I access that bridge? And that is always much harder than when someone is like, hey, you've just done something. Can you explain
Yeah.
it to me? Because this, I'm of course we are trained to consciously take our steps, which means we can recall what we've done and we can, adapt it to other causes. But when it was like really years back, you're like, wait, how did that go? Do you experience it in a likewise way, or do you feel that it's very different in your work?
It's a bit different in a way because that the quality of the space is that it's not just beyond space, that healing space or the space that I work in is also beyond time.
Mhm. Oh yeah, of
And
course.
so it appears in a way. Yeah. And
Yeah.
this also was my interestingly enough, this was my, as I said before, when I was on that A train in New York, the first thing that happened to me, this first quality that I developed was looking at people in their different ages. For some reason, I was seeing people as 3-year-olds, 70-year-olds, 50-year-olds, they're current at this all at the same time. And I could recognize also when a trauma, when something happened.
Mhm.
Yeah. So something with that time quality somehow, I don't know, concentrated into the future. I can't explain it in any other way. I suppose if I had to, I mean, obviously I talk and communicate with my clients, but then the main work happens in this state of silence.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If I had to recall, and yeah, I'm sure it would have been more challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, in a
And then,
way, in coaching, of course, you have to make it like really tangible
exactly.
steps
Exactly.
they can follow. And that
Yeah.
means you have to go back and understand what could be the steps that they, because you already, I remember when you said now, it's beyond time. I remember when I did my training, we still had to do the tantric yoga, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, and in I think the summer or 2 summers before, I was in France doing the Kundalini Festival, and there's always the 3 days of white tantric yoga, right? And I remember we had one 60-minute meditation where I left this space, the time and space continuum as we know it completely.
Yeah.
And afterwards, the world was never the same for me again. Now,
Yeah.
when people speak in linear time, I'm always like, wait a second, have to get on that way of thinking again. Right?
Yeah. The
But
beautiful thing about spiritual learning and transformation when it's done well
yeah,
and right is that it all stays with you, right? That you can,
yeah.
it's literally like this part of the brain opens, but then you can keep the other one as well,
Well,
right?
it's always like, are you sure you want to take the red pill? Because you cannot go back,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So let me get back to the question I had asked you initially. I want to dive a little bit deeper into that for a moment. When you speak of healing, and it's not about healing the body, what other way of healing or what other ways of healing do you see are necessary in this world for people, societies, whatever? Is there anything you could identify?
Yeah. First of all, the body heals. It takes, you know, sometimes it's very fast, but sometimes it just takes longer because that's the dense quality of soul in a way, body.
Mhm.
The healing, this kind of healing happens through facilitating in the person a state of greater tolerance.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's tolerance to reality,
Mhm.
tolerance to one another. That's part of reality. And this is certainly something, maybe the greatest thing that we need right now. But this is the healing. This we suffer because we're not tolerating what's happening. And what's happening is very neutral. It's just happening. And we can just be. So
Mhm.
this is the healing, increasing the level of tolerance of the person.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful. And this is something now I know where I have it from because this is what I teach almost every single person. It's like, it's sweet that you all speak of acceptance. How about tolerance?
Yeah.
How about just being okay with what is, taking reality for what it is and not for what you want it to be
Yeah.
to begin with, right?
Yeah. That's also what
Beautiful.
what yoga is all about. Not
Yes.
about reaching that with it's living in reality.
Right. But now I know where I got it from. Elil, you're having a course coming up,
Yeah.
and I would love for you to elaborate a little bit on that, what it is people can expect, who is it for?
Mhm.
I'm luckily being part of that. I'm really, really proud that you asked me to take a teeny tiny part in the whole course, but maybe can you take people with you a little bit into if this is something for them and what to
Oh,
expect?
it's called Remote Healing Mastery. It's a course in remote healing, because I really recognize that that's for therapists, for healers, but also for yoga teachers and anybody who wants to learn to be very comfortable in facilitating an online space and in healing online. That's a great need, and it's something that I really love teaching. And I've actually been teaching for in the last few years extensively, and yeah. And then we have three amazing guests. You are one of them, because I realized that some of the technical aspects, like my job is to dive deep into the remote healing, into this healing space and the techniques that you use and how to do that. And then I also realized that so many of my colleagues, healers and yoga teachers and so on, also I kind of like, the question that comes up is how do I find my clients? Like, we all know, or many of us know, that this is possible. Of course, I can work remotely. Maybe I need to learn a bit, but I can do it. But then how will people accept it? And how do I find my clients and so on? So I brought like three experts, you, one of them, teaching them about on camera, and this like feeling really comfortable to bring yourself out
Mhm.
in front of groups or for social media, also all that kind of stuff. But also two people who will teach, two wonderful women who will teach about social spiritual marketing and how
Mhm.
to find your audience, which is super important.
Very,
So this
yes.
is one third of the curriculum, and this is absolutely new for me. I usually just teach the healing and all that, but I really recognize the need, and this is absolutely something that would have helped me in the beginning of my path very much. Like, because what how I grew up, like what's a healer anyway, and then a remote healer, like, it took me so many years to just somehow stabilize myself in that kind of identity. So it's all so abstract, and yet your soul and already your profession tells you that this is what you're doing, and then, how do I anchor that in a real world?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's perfect for anybody who's anyway a healer and wants to take their business remotely and to learn how to do that.
Mhm.
Also for yoga teachers and people who facilitate online spaces for groups. And another thing that I often hear from people who have been working online, and we all have been working online in the last few years, is that they're very much depleted. It's like they don't feel like the energy is coming back. And
Yeah.
this is,
Mhm.
I'm always confused about this, because I feel absolutely energized. And I think that space of that I work in has this secret,
Yeah.
that you're so nourished by what you do, because the healing actually happens in your field, and then
Mhm.
there's no the screen, the laptop forms no kind of barrier. So I really want to teach healers and yoga teachers and anybody who's facilitating anything online how to be nourished by that, how to
Mhm.
not be depleted. Yeah.
Mhm.
And anyway, anybody who wants to learn healing and to be able to very deeply connect with the people, either their loved ones, also from afar, but also anybody who's working online and wants to learn to connect deeply. So that's different groups of people. Yeah. I think that course is perfect for actually all of these. And anybody who's curious, it's a very spiritual, deeply spiritual kind of practice.
Mhm.
But we created with you and with Timmy and Noah, we created a curriculum that's really kind of hands-on and very structured. Yeah. So
How long does it take roughly? Like, what's the time span?
the 15 week, like a weekly
15.
course. We take a little break around Christmas, of course, but 2.5 hours a week.
All right.
You'll be asked to practice and get some assignments, but in a very doable way. That's another thing that changed since I became a mother, that I recognize that maybe not everybody's, yeah, capable of a 2.5 hour daily
Yeah.
practice.
Yes.
So it's going to be doable, but it will require some practice.
Mhm.
And yeah, we will encourage anybody who participates to start healing.
Yeah.
You'll get feedback on your work, and also exchange of healing sessions anyway, weekly in the group, but also between the participants. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Beautiful. So we put everything in the show notes, so that people can find you, find your work, find the course, and if there is anything that they need from you, they reach out. Is there anything else that you would love to let people know out there? Anything that comes from your soul, from your heart, from your mind, whatever it is that just wants to come out as an, yeah.
In case you're wondering, you listening to us, you are a healer. Yeah. Yeah. We have this capacity. Yeah. And there's this space. And also, in case you're wondering, as you said before, do I have to complete something in my healing first before I heal somebody else? No, it's the one and the same thing. By healing yourself, you can learn to heal others. By healing others, you become healed. It's one process. And we have that responsibility. We're not separate from each other. Yeah. So be the healer that you are, because our world, sorry if it sounds like a cliche, but our world needs healers, each and every one of us. Very simple. In the US and in Germany, where I live, and everywhere. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And, I think cliches are cliches because there's a lot of truth to them. So thank you so much, Ilil. It was more than a pleasure for me to have
For
you
me as well.
and to have a conversation with you. And I can't wait to work with you again.
Yeah.
Or actually for the first time side by side, And yeah, I can't wait to see what else is to come from your end. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. We
Yeah,
got out
it
of
was
here.
fun. It's raining like hell. It's
Oh
so
my
hot
gosh.
here.
I'm actually happy that you changed the umbrella a little bit and that we didn't have, like all of a sudden your computer explodes or whatever.
Yeah, no.
Oh boy. So how long are you going to stay over in the States?
Till the 6th, August 6th. We're
Oh,
back.
okay. Yeah, that's quite some time. Nice.
Yeah, it's nice. My other sister, I have another half sister who's coming for the next weekend. So yeah, that could be a lot of fun. And it's so beautiful, so peaceful here. She's
Yeah.
outside of town, my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for Agam, just to run, there's
Sure.
this
Oh,
garden, She just
yeah.
runs around, and
Yeah.
there's fruit and vegetables, flowers.
Oh, that's nice. That sounds.
Yeah. I'm not looking forward to another flight, but
Yeah. How did that go with her?
oh, wonderful. First, she was throwing up 4 times during the
Oh,
ride to the airport, and
no.
then again during security. So that luckily I have her constitutional homeopathic remedy. We worked
Okay.
hard to find that, and then
Yeah.
it was fine. And then she was just a incredibly annoying child for 12 hours, because that's how kids are on long flights.
Yeah.
But at least not throwing up again. But
Yeah.
wow, and then in the US, like it's worse than India, the lines when you enter with a
Oh.
European passport. Like we just landed, then 2 more hours standing in line.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember. But I mean, Israel is kind of like even there. It's like when you go to
Yeah.
Israel, come from Israel, you're always like, and you probably not as a
Oh,
citizen, but I
no.
always got like double, triple checked and taken aside, and oh Jesus, and every time I was like, I really like your country, but I really
Friendly
hate what's
people.
up.
We are friendly people.
Friendly people, very friendly people, yes.
Oh, shalom. Oh,
Awesome. Yeah. Eileen, by the way, I
God.
just remembered because you said it that you were a percussionist.
Yeah.
Yes. And you said you could imagine going back into doing
I'm,
some stuff at some point. And yeah, exactly. I'm just finishing up my book. And as a next project on my list is I really want to record a couple of mantras. And I have recorded 3 mantras last year, but that was only with crystal singing bowls, and one was like really a cappella. And now I would love actually to do some that are, actually that you can use in meditations that have a rhythm, that have like, that offer a breathing pattern to people, those kind of things. And I said to kind of the universe, like, hey, you know what? Could you slowly, bit by bit, send me the people that I, would need to do something like that?
There she is.
There she is.
I'd love to.
Yeah.
If you record in Berlin, of course.
Yeah, I could record in Berlin. Like I can't record here anyways, and I would have to figure out where and how to do that. But
It's too peaceful in Switzerland for rhythm section.
well, I'm not the kind of person that's checking around. I usually send something into the ether, and if my wish is strong enough, something presents itself that always is just like, yep, there we go. And when I heard you talk now, I was like, huh, I'm actually looking for a percussionist.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
Wish.
when I'm ready, I will come back to you. I can send you
Yeah.
the 3 mantras that I've recorded last year if you want, and
Yeah.
then yeah, I continue
Amazing.
to see if you're also, yeah, we'll discuss about that when it's time. For
Okay.
right now, I just needed to hear if you're interested at all.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Are they back from Whole Foods? Okay. They will be. I'm
Thank you.
doing a milk cleanse. I'm drinking. It's like ridiculous. You know
Yeah,
that? Milk
and
cleanse?
I read it on your posts, and I was like, what are you exactly doing? What is it that's happening?
I did it 15. Gurudev sent me to do that 15 years ago, I guess. 14, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
When in my early, I was 33, I guess, and suddenly I woke up with like covered with a skin, like an eczema, like crazy that I never had in my life. And it was miserable. And he sent me to do it and really cleared up and taught me also how to live more healthily
Yeah.
generally. But it's basically a parasite cleanse. And the
Okay.
idea behind it is that we all carry whatever kinds of parasites.
Yeah.
They relate to parasites, also to bacteria, to all kinds of to viruses as parasites.
Right.
Yeah. And it's just these herbs that I take every 2 hours, and I take it with milk, and I drink only milk. And it's like full grass fed. I use cow milk. Actually, goat milk would have been better, but that was
Yeah.
difficult
Yeah.
to source. Yeah. Every 2 hours and only milk for 8 days
Wow.
with herbs. And then there's herbs that I take later, and a lot of cayenne pepper in the pills. I can, I feel the cayenne pepper from afar, which is
Wow.
good for parasites.
Yeah.
Yeah. And other herbs that, yeah.
You know where you get the goat's milk is most likely if they have in your area the Aeron supermarket. They
Oh,
are
really?
they are solidly
Oh.
this is all like organic and all this like kind of hipsterish stuff, but also the really good stuff.
Mhm.
Aeron is terribly expensive, but that you get there.
Everything in Massachusetts. Terribly expensive, by
Oh,
the way.
yeah. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I
I guess
remember,
yeah,
really, I
interesting.
remember last time I was in LA, I always went to shop at Aeron, and it's like I came out with a bag like that and I had paid like $120, and you're
Yeah,
just like,
that's
ah, never mind. I mean, in Switzerland, you get used to that anyways, but you
right.
know, so
Yeah.
maybe
But
they have it in your area.
I guess I started, I'm already on day 5, so I'll
Oh,
continue
okay.
the
All
same.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm hungry, but no, I'm not so hungry. I'm just like desiring
Ah, so you're
the
just
privilege.
drinking milk with that,
Yeah.
and this is what
Yeah.
you do.
Yeah, it's full. It's so full of fats, this milk, is that you actually
Wow.
you're not hungry. I'm just some of my soul is a bit hungry for
Yeah.
family meals, but I'm not hungry because there's a lot of fat in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
And
really
and
changed a lot for me all these years ago. And I thought that's a good time,
right.
at least when somebody else can feed my child a bit. And
And with your discipline, I'm sure you make 4 more days.
today's day 5, yeah, 4 more days.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm past the middle point.
Well, then it's halfway through and that's all
And it's
fine.
yeah, yeah, I know.
Mind over matter. I always say like mind over matter.
This anyway.
We
Yeah.
can do that, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. So you know what? I'm wishing you an easy time
Yeah.
for the next days, and yeah, look
It was a
forward to
really
hearing.
pleasure. It was so fun, so much fun to talk.